The Imperium's single point of failure, a bureaucratic nightmare. Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving headfirst into a truly chilling administrative anomaly from the Warhammer 40k universe. We are going to step directly into the mind of a meticulous data processor who stumbles onto a truth so structurally terrifying, the human mind is literally not permitted to hold it. So, prep yourselves for a cold, methodical look into the deep, dark architecture of the Imperium of Man. Let's get right into it.
Our lens into this universe is Lex Mechanic Senior Grade 3X. Imagine this. For 16 years, 4 months, and 9 days, his entire existence has been confined to a single cramped alcove in a data vault, endlessly processing standard-issue data parcels. And I mean, he has a flawless record. Every single file, whether it's tithe projections, mortality ledgers, compliance records, takes exactly 11 to 15 minutes to process. He is a perfectly calibrated, flawless little cog in an infinite, galaxy-spanning administrative machine.
But you have to understand, this machine is built on absolute, crushing surveillance. Hovering right above his terminal is a servoskull. It's a cybernetic drone with one singular purpose: to watch. It logs his precise approach angle. It logs his biometric handshake. It is so ridiculously sensitive that if our Lex Mechanic pauses for even 4 seconds, it automatically registers as a behavioral anomaly. He isn't just processing data, you see. He is being processed by the system simultaneously, in real time.
Then the routine just completely shatters. The fourth item in his queue pops up, and it's a top-tier administrative file labeled Theta 9 Epsilon 7 Dark. But here is the massive anomaly. This file has absolutely no authentication chain. In the Imperium, data is validated through endless layers of authorized stamps. But this file, it's simply validated itself. That is a literal impossibility in such a rigid bureaucracy. It's presenting a reality that simply shouldn't exist.
So he opens the file and looks at the planetary census data, but the column headers are all wrong. Usually, a file like this tracks the expected metrics: tithe compliance, ecclesiarchy affiliation, and a suffering index, which basically proves a population is being properly managed through sanctioned misery. But this new anomalous data? It's completely blank. The governing authority is simply listed as non-affiliated. It's this terrifying empty space where the Imperium's total control is supposed to be. When he tries to force the system to correct this formatting, it just crashes. For the first time in over 16 years, he gets a schema incompatibility error. The system cannot physically process these human worlds because it literally has no category for human existence without the Imperium's overarching structure and suffering. The machine is essentially telling him that these independent human realities are categorically impossible to classify.
Unsure of what to do, the Lex Mechanic logs the error and proceeds manually. 4 hours into this grueling process, he receives a priority override directive from a higher administrative node. It just reads, "Process dataset without inquiry." And right here is where the creeping paranoia sets in. Think about it. He hadn't asked any questions. He hadn't flagged it for a higher review, which means someone high above was watching his terminal in real time, anticipating his cognitive dissonance, and answering questions he hadn't even dared to submit yet.
He nervously presses forward into the data, and the evidence is just mind-bending. He is looking at human civilization spanning 2,000 years, managing their own resources, maintaining incredibly stable populations of 500,000 souls, completely devoid of the Imperium's heavy hand. There are no trauma signatures whatsoever, no mass starvation, no suffering index. It's just clean, functional human life, an absolute doctrinal impossibility in his world.
Now, don't get it twisted. Life outside the Imperium isn't some peaceful utopia. The data shows that across the centuries, isolated colonies frequently meet horrific ends. When orc expansions or Tyranid splinter fleets arrive, unprotected worlds are systematically consumed. And surprisingly, the Lex Mechanic actually feels a grim sort of relief reading this. The mathematics of survival heavily favor the Imperium. You really do need a massive, coordinated void fleet to survive these horrors. But then he reads how some of these isolated worlds actually manage to survive. While the Imperium's standard response to alien threats is rigid, unyielding extermination, these outlier worlds survived through novel void shielding and, shockingly, cooperative mutual defense arrangements with xenospecies. To the Imperium, treating an alien as anything other than a target to be immediately destroyed is unthinkable. Yet these humans survived for centuries precisely by forming alliances. The dataset then pivots to warp transit. Now, normally, the Imperium relies heavily on the Astronomicon for fast, highly centralized travel, but these divergent timelines, they rely on much slower, fragmented travel because they don't have a central beacon. And this contrast leads our Lex Mechanic to a massive, galaxy-shattering realization about the entire architecture of human survival.
It all boils down to a single point of failure. Because humanity in these divergent timelines is fragmented, the loss of any one world cannot destroy the whole species, but the Imperium, it is entirely 100% centralized around the Golden Throne. If that fails, the entire system collapses instantly. The Emperor isn't just humanity's greatest protector. His throne is humanity's most severe existential vulnerability.
And here is where the logic becomes genuinely apocalyptic. The dataset reveals that warp turbulence is actually significantly lower in areas without mass human suffering. Since chaos actively feeds on fear and despair, the Imperium's entire structure, the industrial conscription, the penal legions, the enforced terror, it systematically generates synchronized galaxy-wide mass suffering. By design, the Imperium creates the galaxy's absolute cleanest, most powerful warp signal.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway is this. The Imperium's horrific cruelty is not an unfortunate necessity for survival. The Imperium is the most efficient engine of psychic warp resonance ever constructed. It actively sustains the exact nightmare conditions it claims to resist because it was specifically built to produce those emotional outputs. Humanity isn't just surviving. Humanity survives, yes, but only as fuel.
The Lex Mechanic just sits there, completely frozen by this apocalyptic truth. Suddenly, he realizes the entire dataset was a test, a protocol he was meant to process to this exact conclusion. The doctrinal oversight official in red robes silently arrives at his alcove. The official doesn't scream heresy, he doesn't summon the executioners, he just calmly declares the dataset reclassified as non-permissible counterfactual cognition. The truth isn't heresy, it's simply forbidden knowledge, entirely unfit for a functioning processor mind.
So what exactly happens to a mind that knows too much? A mnemonic audit. This is a cold, incredibly clinical 40-minute procedure. A silent servitor essentially plugs instruments straight into the Lex Mechanic's cranial ports. And over the next 40 minutes, he literally feels his interior unraveling. Specific memory threads are hunted down, unspooled, and just rethreaded. Right around minute 30, he feels this distinct sensation of a heavy vault door closing inside his own mind. And by minute 40, his shift is officially marked as uninterrupted, and he's completely wiped and reassigned to a different vault. Years later, the Lex Mechanic is safely filing census data again. But the wipe wasn't entirely perfect. On one routine shift, he processes a ledger detailing 14,000 deaths from a massive industrial accident. It's coldly categorized as acceptable operational loss. He just stares at the word acceptable. He feels a lingering, unnameable gap in his mind. It's like a phantom limb of memory where a vast architectural truth used to live. His notation instinct occasionally reaches for categories like stable that simply do not exist anywhere in the imperial schema.
Which leaves us with this final, truly haunting question. What exactly is the shape of a silenced mind? Our Lex Mechanic just continues his work, reciting his daily litanies with genuine belief, completely unaware of the vast, terrifying knowledge sealed just beneath his consciousness. He operates within a system perfectly designed to generate the very horrors it fights against. It's a chilling reminder of the things we might instinctively know, but are systematically conditioned never to ask. Thank you so much for joining me in this explainer. Keep questioning the architecture around you.